Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. On today's video, we're going to do three teams I picked that hope win the Stanley Cup sooner than later. The video is just going to be a real short and brief history of the team, and then a little bit about some of the players, and then talk about their greatest postseason run and how far they went. So that's how the video will go. So yeah, three teams I picked. No particular order on who I want to win the most. Just three teams that if could see win a cup finally, who it would be. Alright, so first on the board is Minnesota Wild. First season was 2000 to 2001. They got 24 seasons going now in total. Total playoff record 34-62. So not very successful in the playoffs. And then here we got a cool chart. We got rounds they've made it to. So the quarter final is your first round. Semifinal is your second. Conference finals is your third. Then Stanley Cup is the last round of playoffs, number 4. So for Minnesota Wild, they've made it 10 times to the first round, the quarterfinal, twice to the semi, and then once to the conference finals, and they've made 0 Stanley Cup appearances for a total of 13 playoff appearances. So 24 seasons total, 13 playoff appearances, so they're about right at a little over half. So they're pretty much a coin flip every year if they're going to make the playoffs or not. Fun fact, for Minnesota is known as the state of hockey. So, yeah, that's one reason why I want Minnesota to win. Minnesota has a bunch of players from the NHL from Minnesota. It's the biggest sport probably in Minnesota. That's why I got named the state of hockey. So it'd be good for the state, good for the city, and good for I think the whole NHL to finally have the state of Minnesota to finally have a Stanley Cup for the fan base and just for the whole league in general. But to me, it's just weird to think that Minnesota has a professional team for hockey. They still haven't won Stanley Cup. But it doesn't always matter what the location is when it comes to winning. So hopefully sooner than later they will finally win their Stanley Cup. Alright, next let's move on and we'll talk about how they got to the conference final. And then we'll talk about some of the best players in the franchise's history. Alright, so continuing on with Minnesota. So 2002-03, they made the conference finals, round 3. That's the biggest push they've had in the postseason the whole time they've been around. So round 1, they went to Game 7 against the Avalanche and won. Round 2, forced another Game 7, won against Canucks, so 4-3. And then round 3, they got swept by the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim 4-0. So first 2 rounds were forced into Game 7s, and then round 3 they got swept by the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. I don't know how that happened. I apologize. And then their longest time out of the playoffs and their longest time in the playoffs in a row. They got 4 years that did not make the playoffs in a row. 2009, 2012 playoffs. Then 6 years in a row was their longest streak of making the playoffs every year. Now from the 2013 playoffs to the 2018 playoffs. So they had a good streak going here, but clearly 2013, 2018 never even got back to that third round. So 6 years in a row to playoffs, but they have not gone back to the third round or got over the hump. So that'll be a big question for whenever Minnesota gets back to that round 3, as this game will get brought up a lot and the history that they've only had one chance so far in it. So that would be a big hump for the franchise, depending on however much longer it takes for them to get there. Alright, so the next part, I'm going to clean this board up and we're going to talk about a couple key players from the franchise. Alright, some famous players for the Minnesota Wild. If I'm mispronouncing names, I apologize. Marian Gaborik, jersey 10, position right wing. His all-time goals there is 219 goals while his time at Minnesota. And he played for a couple other teams, but I think most people, if they watched him play in those 2000 years, early 2000s, mid 2000s, I think most people would recognize him in the Minnesota jersey than the other teams he played for. And in 02-03, he led the team in points in the regular and postseason when they made that push into the conference final. So in their best year in the playoffs, he was probably he was one of the biggest factors. At least offensively, he was definitely the biggest factor, leading the team in points. Next is Miku Koivu. Miku Koivu, jersey number 9, position center. All-time points leader with 709 points combined, so that's goals and assists combined. And he was the longest captain on the team. So if you're new to hockey, what it means by captain on the team is if you see the players on the ice, one guy will have a C on his jersey, that's a captain, and then there's usually 2 assistant captains that'll have A's on their jersey. So he had the C on his jersey longer than anyone else in the franchise. He yeah, he was a very good player. Of all the players from Minnesota, he's who I think is the most. And I think it's because every time they advertised Minnesota, it always had him up there and always recognized him being the captain. So at least for me, Miku Koivu, to me, is the most recognizable and who I think of when I think of Minnesota Wild hockey. But then next is an American player, Ryan Shutter. Yeah, Ryan Shutter, jersey number 20, position defenseman. Years on the team, 2012-2021. He had 2 51-point seasons, which set a franchise record in 2015-2016, and then he did it again in 2017-2018. And that franchise record is for the most points scored by a defenseman in a single season for Minnesota Wild. And it still stands as why I did the research for this video. For me, I said Miku Koivu is one I recognize the most, but I think a lot of people would probably say it'd be Ryan. Ryan might be, he's in the top 3, I would say, of all the Minnesota players who've played. I think Ryan is probably in the top 3 most recognizable or most remembered. But they do have another guy, a new guy. I didn't put him up here. He's playing now, but in a couple years he might take over the mantle. Kirill Kaprizov. I mispronounced that. He's a Russian player. So in his 5th year with the Minnesota Wild, he's injured right now, so hopefully he gets back to full health. Minnesota Wild fans will be happy once he's back on the team and hopefully back at 100%. But I think in a couple of years, if he stays and re-signs with the Minnesota Wild for a long-term deal, he'll be clearly the most, I think, remembered and best player in the franchise. So he's the ticket and the foundation for them to win the cup. They got to get players around him. But hopefully he comes back from his injury and he's okay. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. And he has one 100-plus point season, and he's only been in the league for 5 years. So yeah, he's a superstar. He's one of the best players in the league right now. And if Minnesota Wild gets to keep him, their chances of getting a cup are a lot higher than if he takes offer someone else and moves after his contract. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next team. All right, next team on the list is the San Jose Sharks. They've been to, well, we'll get to that. But one reason why I want them to win the Stanley Cup is the other 2 California teams, the Kings and the Ducks, have won Stanley Cups. The Sharks is the only team that's based in California that's still active that hasn't won a cup. And they've had a lot of good years and a ton of good players. And they've had a lot of chances to get there, and where there's years that you could have thought the Sharks could have finally done it, and they haven't. So that's my biggest reason. All the teams in California are active. They've all won cup, but the Sharks haven't. And some years the Sharks were way better than the other 2 California teams. They just have not been able to get over that hump like the other ones have. I always thought San Jose had one of the coolest logos as a kid. I always enjoyed watching them as a little kid. But as I got older, watching a lot of players for the Sharks has been really fun, and sad that none of them have gotten to win a cup, with some of them spending so much time in San Jose that they did play for. But their first season was 1991-1992. We got a total of 33 seasons so far. Total playoff record, 119 wins, 122 losses. So a ton of playoff experience. The rounds they've been to, they got 7 in the quarterfinal, the first round, 9 in the semi-round. So they've been to the second round more than the first round. They got 4 conference finals, so 4 times in the third round. and they've only went to the Stanley Cup once. So it equals up 7, 9, 4, 1, 21 times. So they've been they've been over they've been in the playoffs way over half the amount of total seasons. So a lot of success of getting to the playoffs, but not a lot of success to actually win the cup or even get to the Stanley Cup. 21 times, only got to it once and then lost. So a lot of success, but just not down the stretch. And then our fun fact for today, I'll try to do this with the history videos. I should have said that earlier. And I apologize if my handwriting's bad. I'm trying to take my time so everyone can read the board. But the color teal came from someone inside the organization being a Dolphins fan. So apparently the Sharks color was originally going to be red, but someone from the organization, I guess big time Dolphins fan, brought up the color teal, and they drew it up, and ever since then it's been teal since the start of the franchise. So that's the original color was apparently supposed to be red. That kind of makes sense thinking about Sharks, but so yeah. So thanks to the Dolphins fan, the Sharks have had the color teal for the past 30 years. So thought that was funny. All right, next let's talk about their Stanley Cup. Who they beat to get there and who they lost to. Alright, so Stanley Cup appearance 2015-2016. Their first round, they played Kings. They took the series in 5 games. Round 2, took the series in Game 7 over Predators. Round 3, 6-game series against the Blues. And then they met the Pittsburgh Penguins and lost in Game 6 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And that took them from the only chance to get the Stanley Cup. So most years in a row in the playoffs, they had 10 years, 2004 to 2014. Then most years out of playoffs, 2020 to 2025, 6 years. And since 2019, they've not been above 6th place in their division. So they've been 6th, 7th, 8th. So it's been a rough 6 years for the Sharks. And I know the season isn't over. I know it says 25 in there, but their record right now is so bad that they can't have any chance to make the playoffs. But they're out again this year. So it's been very, very rough for the Sharks for the past couple of years. All right, let's move on and talk about a couple key players of their franchise, especially ones that helped them get to the Stanley Cup this year, and also all the success they had in earlier years, especially this 10-year stretch of continuous playoff appearance. Alright, here are some of the most famous players for the San Jose Sharks. First, we got Patrick Marleau, jersey 12, position center. Did 23 years in NHL, all-time leader in most games played with 1,779 games. He did 21 seasons with the Sharks. So almost his whole entire career is with the San Jose Sharks. And he was also a captain of the team, and so was Joe Thornton, but we'll get to him next. But back to Patrick. All-time goals leader for the Sharks, 522, and all-time points leader with 1,111. So he has a lot of all-time leaders at the moment. He is not in the NHL Hall of Fame at the moment. Alright, next, Joe Thornton, probably the most recognizable Shark player, even though Patrick Marleau has all these all-time goals on all-time points leader and most NHL games played. Yeah, I think Joe Thornton probably still is the most recognizable player for the Sharks, and one of the most recognizable players in hockey in general, from people who've got to watch him from the beginning to the end of his career. And then, for Patrick, the all-time goals, the all-time points, that's just for San Jose franchise record. The all-time games, that was combined for his whole entire career, including the 2 seasons without the Sharks, or outside the Sharks organization. Alright, so back to Joe Thornton. He did 24 years in NHL, 15 with the Sharks. 2006-2007, he was a season leader in assists with 92 points and a combined points of 114. 2006, he had the Hart and Art Ross Trophy, the The Hart Trophy is MVP of the league, so he was the most valuable player of the league that year. And then the Art Ross Trophy is the person at the end of the year who has the most combined points. So he won both of those that year. So 2006 was Joe Thornton's best year. I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's really anything up to debate about that. And then we got Evgeny Nabokov, and he's hard name to pronounce. Evgeny Nabokov. Practice a bunch, but I'm still getting it messed up. Jersey number 20, position goalie. He's a franchise leader in wins and shutouts for all of San Jose. And then as a rookie, you got the Carter Memorial Trophy, which is Rookie of the Year. You got that in 2001. And then in 2008, I'm going to mispronounce this, I always do, the Vesa Trophy. He was the runner-up, so he got second place. And that's for the top goaltender in the whole league. So he got second place on that. He fell short to Martin Brodeur for the Devils. So if you're behind Martin Brodeur for top goalie, that means you had a pretty good season. So, yeah, Guinea was by far the best goalie on the team. It's a real shame he didn't win a cup with the Sharks, but maybe if some years were different, maybe some players played with him because their years could have interlapped, maybe things could have been different, but yeah, Guinea, I think, is by far of all the Sharks goalies was the best one, and might have been the best chance for them to win a cup if he could have made it while playing with them to the cup. That might have been their best chance. Alright, next we'll move on to the final team. Alright, our final team, Ottawa Senators. Out of all the Canadian teams, I guess if I had to root for one who I want to win a cup the most next would be Ottawa. They have 0 cup appearance or 0 Stanley Cups on their franchise. So it'd be nice to see them finally have one so the whole city can celebrate. But yeah, of all the Canadian teams, this would be the one I would root for. Try to get their first cup one. And as a Washington Capitals fan, I understand how frustrating it is for a team never won one, and then they finally do, and how exciting that is. So I could feel for Ottawa, San Jose, and for the Wild fans for how bad they probably won the Stanley Cup, and just always hoping every year is finally the year. So for Ottawa, their first year was 1992, 1993, 32 season, total playoff record 72-79, so about 500 in the playoffs. Rounds they've made it to. Quarter final, first round 9, semifinal, second round they've made 4 appearances, conference final 2 appearances, round 3, and then 1 Stanley Cup appearance for a total of 16 times. So right at half, yeah, 16. Yeah, so right at every year you can flip a coin, and that'll tell you if they're gonna make the playoffs or not. Fun fact for Ottawa: they got their name from Ottawa's status of being the Canadian national government. There's one reason why they got the name, and then a former hockey team that was based in the city is also why they have the name Senators. So a cool little fact about that. All right, next we're gonna move on to how they got to the Stanley Cup round and who they lost to, and then we'll talk about their players. All right, next, their Stanley Cup was in 2006, 2007. Round 1, 4-1 over the Penguins. Semifinal, 4-1 over the Devils. Conference championship, or conference final, sorry, 4-1 over the Sabres. So 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. So they couldn't really go or do any better in the first 3 rounds. I mean, literally only took 5 games per round. As fast as you could do it in 4. So great start for the Senators in the postseason, just breezing on through, just not having any trouble, it seemed like. But then Stanley Cup, Anaheim Ducks, we heard them again, crushing people's dreams. In this video, they played Uno and pulled a reverse card on Ottawa, and they ended up beating Ottawa in 5 games. So Ottawa lost 4-1 and total 5 games to the Ducks. So yeah, won 5 games. Anaheim played in, put the reverse card on Ottawa, and Anaheim won 5 games. So it's funny how that kind of worked out. Not funny if you're a Senators fan, but their longest playoff run was 1997 to 2008, 11 years. Pretty good playoff run, which includes this right here, the Stanley Cup they went to. And then the longest they've been out of the playoffs has been 2018 to 2024, so 7 years. So hopefully they could break that this year and make the playoffs. But we'll see. But alright, next we're going to talk about some of their players. Alright, here we go. Ottawa Senators players. Daniel Atherson, jersey number 11, position right wing. Probably one of my favorite players I ever got to watch as a kid. Definitely my favorite Senator. Probably my favorite player to play that I got to watch since mid 1990s as a kid play on a Canadian team. Probably Daniel Atherson. Love Daniel Atherson. So I think of Ottawa, I think of him. Yeah, 17 years of Ottawa, only 1 year with a different NHL organization. 2022 introduced in the NHL Hall of Fame. That was not a shocker to anyone that he was going to make the Hall of Fame. Second highest Swedish-born scorer in NHL history, only behind Mats Sundin. All-time goal leader for Ottawa Senators history with 426. All-time points leader with 1,108 points. Yeah, 1,108 points combined for Senator for the franchise. 13 years as captain, longest in team history for the franchise. Yeah, Daniel Atherson. There's a lot of other great players for the Senators, but this will be very hard for me to think of someone other than him as the main and best Senator to wear the uniform for that team. But another good guy, Stanley Heatley, jersey 15, position left wing. He had only 4 years with the Senators, but they were very impactful. For the franchise, he had most goals in the season, 50 goals, and he did it twice. He did it in 05-06, so he set the record then, and then he did it again the next year, 06-07, so back-to-back years, 50 goals. Most points in a single season, 06-07, 105 points, and that's the year they went to the Stanley Cup. So that 06-07 year, Stanley Heatley was a huge factor to get them to the Stanley Cup, along with Daniel Atherson as well. But these 4 years that Stanley Heatley was there for Ottawa, they only missed the playoffs once. And then the only time they got to the Stanley Cup was the years he was in 2 years. He had the best hockey of his career, I think, was with Ottawa. I mean, maybe some other people might want to debate, but I think his best hockey, his best career was in Ottawa, those 4 years for Dan Heatley. But there's one more player I want to talk about, and just didn't have room to fit him on the board. So I'll be moving on to the last player, and then that'll be the final part of the video for this one. Alright, finally, the last player I want to talk about for the Ottawa Senators, Erik Karlsson. He was a defenseman, number 65 for his jersey. Longtime captain for the Ottawa Senators when he played there. He had 9 years with the organization. His best years for the Sens was his 3rd year in NHL, and it was 2011 to 2012. He had 81 games played, 19 goals, 59 assists, total of 78 points. So right underneath Holden's a point per game. It's pretty good. Plus minus 16, so he's positive 16 in the plus and minus category. 65 blocks and 60 hits. He won the James Norris Memorial Trophy that year, and then again in 2014 and 2015. He has 3 total. The James Norris Memorial Trophy is the best defenseman in the year for the whole league. And he has 3 of them, and 2 with the Senators. Only 4 players have more than him in all of NHL history. Only 4 players have more than him, and he is technically tied for 4th of all time. Bobby Orr has 8, Lindstrom, I forgot the other guy's name, has 7, and there's a guy above him who has 5, James Norris. I just can't think of his name. So, yeah, pretty high up there, and a very, very hard trophy to win. Not too many players have won 2 or even 3, and he had 3. And he was a face and a huge part of the organization once they got him. They tried to build a team around him, an organization I think really did try to do everything they could with Erik Karlsson once they saw his talent to try to use him as a foundation and get the rest of the pieces together to try to have another Stanley Cup run, but it just did not work out. That's a shame. Hopefully someday Ottawa will win. I know Erik Karlsson brought a lot of hope to the city and a lot of good memories for him when he played there, but maybe hopefully soon in the future, maybe they'll have their first Stanley Cup victory. But that's it for the video. Like and subscribe. I know if I went a little fast, I apologize. There's a lot of information, and I try to go through it quick so it's smooth and sweet. But yeah, like and subscribe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you watch this. And I'll make my next video as soon as I can. Thank you. Have a good one.